she's not in the water. I can tell you that. She wasn't put in the water. I think this scenario was made up to use the water and the boat as a scenario for whatever he did. And I'm not accusing him of doing anything at this point in time, but from my understanding of what I saw from this test, I don't believe she's in the water. I really don't.
They have been on that boat for hours. Federal agents in black shirts, blue gloves, working below deck, moving through every compartment, removing evidence in bags. The dock is quiet. Yellow crime scene tape stretches across the hull. This is not a missing person search. This is a crime scene. The boat belongs to Brian and Lynette Hooker. They called it Soulmate. 20 years of marriage. Thousands of miles of open water. A sailing life they documented for the world to follow. It is docked at a Coast Guard station in Fort Pierce, Florida, surrounded by federal agents, with crime scene tape on its hull. And a private investigator with 47 years of law enforcement experience has reached one conclusion about where Lynette Hooker is. She was never in the water. Stay with me. Before we go anywhere near the evidence, I want to talk about Lynette. Because in a case that moves this fast, the person at the center of it can get lost. Lynette Hooker deserves better than that. She was 55 years old, a Michigan mother, married to Brian for over 20 years. They did not just sail, they built an identity around it. They called themselves the Sailing Hookers. They documented every journey on social media, the Caribbean water, the salt air, the open horizon, the life they chose together. They had a following, people who showed up every time they posted, and they named their boat Soulmate. That was their word for what they had. Lynette's daughter Carly Ellsworth posted a video this Mother's Day. She said it was her first one without her mom. She said it was hard, knowing her mother was not a text away anymore. That is who this case is about. Now let me tell you what Brian Hooker says happened to her. April 4th, night, the Abaco Islands, Bahamas. Brian says he and Lynette were on an 8-foot dinghy, making their way from Hopetown back to the Soulmate. Water rough, waves 3 feet. He says Lynette bounced off the side of the dinghy in what he called a little blow. She went into the water. She had the spare dinghy key in a dry bag with her. Brian says he threw her a flotation cushion immediately. The wind drove them apart. He anchored the dinghy and called her name for an hour. He never heard her voice again. He made a phone call to a friend shortly after, and in that call he said this: "We stayed too long. We were left to dark. No life jackets," his own words. Hold on to that detail. The private call, those exact words. We are coming back to it. But here is where Brian's account starts to fracture. 7:30 p.m., April 4th. Lynette goes into the water. 4 a.m., April 5th. Brian arrives at a marina at Marsh Harbor. 8 hours. He said he called her name for an hour, threw the flotation cushion, anchored the dinghy. That accounts for roughly 60 minutes. Think about what that means for the remaining 7. He was on the water. In the dark, the dinghy anchored, calling her name into nothing. He did not reach shore until 4 in the morning. She was not reported missing until the following day. 2 scenarios. Either Brian spent those hours doing everything he could, alone in the dark searching, or something else happened during those 7 hours that has never been publicly explained. That question does not have an answer yet. So investigators searched. The United States Coast Guard, working with Bahamian authorities, covered the area where Brian says Lynette went overboard. They searched for over 10 days. Here's what they found. Nothing. No body, no clothing, no life jacket, no flotation cushion, the one Brian says he threw directly to her, no dry bag, no spare dinghy key. Not one item Brian described putting into that water was ever recovered. According to T.J. Ward, Bahamian water is extraordinarily clear, visibility reaching 15 feet down in many areas. A thorough search, 10 days. Clear water, still nothing. Here is what we know so far. 10 days, clear water, zero trace of anything Brian described. That absence, T.J. Ward could not move past it. But while investigators processed that empty search, Brian's behavior was telling its own story. He was arrested April 8th. Held for 5 days as a possible person of interest. Released April 13th, no charges filed. Then he left the Bahamas. His wife was still missing. The investigation was still active. Brian traveled to Michigan, hired lawyers in 2 jurisdictions, Michigan and the Bahamas. before a single charge was filed. He gave media interviews, ABC, CBS, NBC, and here is what he said. "She belongs with me. We belong with each other. I'm going to need somebody with more authority to tell me to stop." Sit with that language. "She belongs with me" is possession framing, not grief framing. "I'm going to need somebody to tell me to stop" frames the search as something requiring external permission to end. Ask yourself what kind of language a man uses when he is genuinely desperate to find the woman he loves. T.J. Ward heard those words, and he did not move past them. If this case is sitting with you the way it's sitting with me, share this video. The more eyes on Lynette Hooker's case, the better the chance that someone who knows something comes forward. Subscribe to Justice Over Everything. Uncover the truth. Demand justice now. T.J. Ward, private investigator, 47 years of law enforcement experience, former officer, pilot, medic, most known for his work on the Natalie Holloway case, an investigation that eventually led to Joran van der Sloot, now serving time in a Peruvian prison after admitting to killing Natalie. That case took 18 years. T.J. Ward said he will work the Lynette Hooker case for just as long. The technology he used is not a polygraph. It is a layered voice analysis program developed by an Israeli firm with artificial intelligence built in. According to T.J. Ward, it detects gaps between what someone says and what is actually in their mind. He says it is 95% accurate. He states he is the only licensed private investigator in the United States authorized to use it. He ran 2 sets of Brian's statements through it. His national media interviews, and the private call Brian made to a friend, not knowing he was being analyzed. Remember that detail I told you to hold on to? This is exactly why. Here is what T.J. Ward found. 25 discrepancies in Brian's account, in one short private call to a friend. I want to be honest. Finding one is the one I had to read twice. According to T.J. Ward's analysis,
She's not in the water.
Lynette Hooker is
I
not
can
in
tell
the
you
water.
that. She's not.
The
She wasn't
scenario,
put in the water.
the storm, the dinghy,
I think
the dark,
this scenario was made
in
up to
T.J.
use
Ward's
the water
assessment constructed.
and the boat as
He
a
stated
scenario
clearly
for
he is
whatever
not
he
accusing
did.
Brian of any
And I'm
specific
not accusing
act.
him of
He
doing
is
anything at
reporting
this
what the
point in
technology
time.
shows.
But
Let that land.
from my understanding,
Finding
and
2.
what I saw from this
Brian
test,
cried
I
on
don't
camera
believe she's in
during
the
media
water.
interviews.
I really don't.
According to T.J. Ward, the software flagged that crying is not genuine. Finding 3. And this is the one I keep returning to. Brian's statements about loving Lynette, about 20 years of marriage. The analysis found discrepancies there too. Genuine grief should be consistent with what is in the mind. According to T.J. Ward, it was not. Finding 4. The private call showed the most discrepancies of all. Brian was not performing for a camera, and that is exactly what the analysis exposed. 25 discrepancies. Crying not genuine. Statements of love showing inconsistencies. A conclusion that the water scenario was constructed. His own words produced all of that. And then something happened that changed this investigation entirely. The Soulmate left the Bahamas. Brian is in Michigan. His wife still missing. The investigation still active. The Soulmate departed Marsh Harbor, sailed by 2 men Lynette's daughter Carly had never seen before, and they turned off the GPS, a boat at the center of a criminal investigation, moving toward the United States, GPS disabled. The Coast Guard Investigative Service intercepted it 40 nautical miles off Melbourne, Florida, brought it to Fort Pierce, and then crime scene tape across the hull. Federal agents below deck for hours. Evidence removed in bags. The CGIS has opened a criminal investigation into Lynette Hooker's disappearance. Not a missing persons case, a criminal investigation. If something happened to Lynette before she ever got on that dinghy, the Soulmate is where investigators will find it. But here is a detail that needs more attention. A Coast Guard memo obtained by CBS News states investigators are actively seeking the occupants of a second sailboat, moored near the Soulmate in Aunt Pat's Bay on or around April 4th. That person may have seen or heard something that directly supports or contradicts Brian's account. If you were on a sailboat near Aunt Pat's Bay or Elbow Cay in early April, contact the CGIS or the FBI. You can remain completely anonymous. That one call could change everything. Now let me put all of this in one place. Lynette goes overboard at 7:30 p.m. Brian reaches a marina at 4 a.m., 8 hours unaccounted for. She was not reported missing until the following day. No life jackets. Nighttime. Rough water. A 10-day search in clear Bahamian water. Nothing recovered. Brian left the Bahamas while his wife was still missing. Hired lawyers in 2 jurisdictions before a single charge was filed. His words, "She belongs with me. I'll need somebody to tell me to stop." A 47-year investigator found 25 discrepancies in his account. Crying not genuine. Statements of love showing inconsistencies. Water scenario, constructed. The Soulmate moved with GPS disabled. Now sitting at a federal station with crime scene tape on it and evidence bags removed. Each one of these alone might be explained. All of them together, in the same story, told by the same person. That is a different calculation entirely. Before we close, there is one more thing I want to say. Brian Hooker has not been charged with any crime. The CGIS criminal investigation is open. Forensic processing of the Soulmate is ongoing. No results publicly disclosed. What we do not know, where Lynette is, what was in those evidence bags, who the 2 men on the Soulmate were, who was on that second sailboat in Aunt Pat's Bay. Those questions still do not have answers. Lynette Hooker was 55 years old, a Michigan mother, a woman who built her life around a sailing dream on a boat called Soulmate. Her daughter Carly posted a Mother's Day video about a mother who is not a text away anymore. She deserves answers. The forensic results are coming. That witness is still out there. This case is not closed, and justice over everything will be here when it breaks. If this case moved you, share this video. Keep Lynette Hooker's name in the public eye. The more people who see this, the better the chance that someone who knows something comes forward. Subscribe to Justice Over Everything. Uncover the truth. Demand justice.